Heather Langenkamp, and the real Freddy Krueger.
I was in the bar. Where's Rodney? Rodney!
He's here somewhere.
Well, let's call him. We got enough room?
Yeah. Rodney's in next to me.
Just put Ira in a wheelchair. I spent enough time there. I know that's not PC, but do any of you girls out there have Rodney?
Yeah. Who's keeping Rodney hostage?
Some goth girl with Rodney over their shoulder. Where is he?
All right, we'll find him.
We'll find him. We got Rodney on speaker. Do you have room here? Hey, Rodney? John? Yeah,
You're in a room of about 200 people that are
and
listening
me
to
and
you.
Heather will be here, and we'll put Rodney on the end now.
With the Duns.
Wake up!
Come back downstairs.
Say no really loud.
It's Saturday night, and I only have one thing to say to Brooke. Where's the bourbon dish?
You ruined everything.
Yeah, get over here, bye. We're waiting for you. Put your pants on. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Is he really
He's sleeping.
Okay, what we'll do is anyone that has questions, just please raise your hand. And when we call on you, if you would, just stand up and project so we can hear you. Question?
Are you guys having a good time? Just checking.
Okay. Who has questions? Right here.
Robert, what was your favorite kill scene in any of the nightmares?
I think it's actually in part 6. I have to be honest. The boy that was hearing impaired. Oh. Because it's such a politically incorrect kill. And that's Freddy's way.
Who else? The boy in the green shirt.
You know what's great about playing Freddy is over the years and the 8 different films, I got to work with extraordinary actors, established and already stars, and young people like Johnny Depp and Heather who were just starting out. And it was great for me because between the actors and the directors, it kept me fresh and it kept me on my toes. I mean, some of our directors, we forget, you know, we had Chuck Russell before The Mask. We had Rennie Harlan before Die Hard. You know, we had Wes Craven right at the beginning of his ascendancy. And wonderful young people like Rachel Talalay, the gifted Rachel Talalay. And so it was really fun for me to every year or two to be thrown in with all this new talent, and that kept me on my toes, and that was what was, when I look back on it, that was what was really rewarding.
Over here against the wall.
Yeah, how much Wes Craven you working with?
Well, we start, John and Heather, you know, actually, I think Heather actually probably met Wes before I did.
You know, it's intimidating working for someone who is so, one, their vision is really strong, that you just really, you realize how undeveloped your own imagination is, and I think that's how I felt when I worked with Wes Craven, because like when you're 18, 17, when I was, you know, just a teenager, you look at people like Robert and John and Wes, who had been involved in the movies, you know, much longer than I had, and they saw the picture in their minds in a way that I couldn't do it yet. I didn't have the skill to like understand how, you know, acting translated to the big screen. And I think Wes, of all the directors I've ever worked for, he had such a strong idea of what he wanted, and I've always tried as I grew up and tried to get better at what I did to have that same kind of vision about, whatever you do, whether it's, you're planning to build a shed or, whatever it is, just to have it in your mind and have it, already built in your mind and then get it done in real life. That's how he was.
John, when did you meet Wes? I've never heard.
I met him the very first day of cemeteries in the picture.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who he was. I went around asking. I said, "Who's the director?" And they said, "He's over there." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I walked over to him and I said, I really, really like this script. I like the dream aspect of it, all that. I did have a kind of a sense of reservation beyond the dream thing as to how it would play out. But that's what happened. I started working with the picture in that day. And I thought it was very interesting in many, many, many ways throughout, yes.
I'd been hanging out at a New Wave bar on La Brea in LA, and I was working in a play with George Wendt from Cheers, and it was this bizarre crew of out-of-work or sporadically out-of-work actors. Christopher Lloyd from Taxi was there, and they had 2 monitors over the bar, and they ran continuous loops from Eraserhead by David Lynch and From the Hills Have Eyes. And after a couple of drinks and waiting for the band to play, I was kind of mesmerized by these films. So my concept of Wes Craven back in those days was sort of like a David Lynch guy. That's how we thought of Wes, or at least the people that I knew. And then when I met him, he was sort of like this kind of like erudite, Ralph Lauren professor, yeah, and that was a whole different thing. But he always had, even up until the last film that I worked with Wes on, he always sort of kept the 14-year-old boy alive in him. And this is a guy who, if you've ever visited his house, had the most extraordinary coffee table books, and was always asking and inquisitive about wonderful things that were going on in the world, politically, travel, just interesting things. But there was still this sort of like 14-year-old fanboy alive and well in Wes, and that I really responded to. And when you're doing a horror movie, I'm dragging, Brooke's head around, or I'm chasing Heather, barefoot, and Heather's stepping on like set nails, and they're going through her foot. To have Wes there to like make peace and to make a good joke, to crack a joke, or crack wise, or to be a script doctor, really kind of relieve the tension and the pressure of low-budget horror movie making. And Wes is, I guess in the purest sense, an auteur. He's a director-writer, so he can always fix the dialogue on the set, which is nice. And you don't have the pressure of having to improvise, because Wes gives you a line, a different line that's better than the line that he wrote originally. So you get kind of spoiled by that too, I might add.
Well, and then in Nightmare 3, because he wrote the original script, we have to mention too that Wes knew how to write for